Welcome to my review of Aldynes for the Super Grafx. I believe this is an original game on the Super Grafx, an exclusive game that you can only play on the Super Grafx, if I'm correct. I haven't seen it anywhere else. This game took me around 8 hours and 49 minutes to beat. Quite a difficult shooter, but really, really fucking good. The visuals are actually quite good. There's some really detailed bosses with, multiple segments of their bodies moving and a lot of detail. And it's a very challenging game, but you do have unlimited continues. And I believe you start at the last checkpoint you got to, so I don't think you get sent too far back. But there's just some very dense checkpoints that took me a while to beat. Some of them near the end were really, really hard. I did do a tutorial on this game where I try to break down my positioning. And it'll give you a general idea of what to do, but you kind of got to memorize, you got to kind of just memorize where to move in some of these parts because they're super dense. This is, of course, a pattern-based game like a lot of old games where you can just memorize your positioning through the bullets pretty much. And as long as you move the same each time, I think things will pretty much remain as they were. So you got to memorize your own path through the sections. But that's how most of these games work. But I really enjoyed this game. It was very satisfying and complete, challenging, and a real nice visual presentation. Now, not every area looks great. Like this, this part, nothing too special, really. I mean, it looks a little bland. The parallax scrolling is kind of cool. But I believe the bosses are all pretty really cool looking. Like, see this guy? He has, all these different moving parts and stuff. Pretty cool for games of this period. These were, during the period of, 16-bit games and stuff like that. I mean, some of this shit is more detailed than what you would see on Genesis, from what I remember. Now, I don't know about this boss specifically, but I remember the game having a pretty nice visual presentation at points. But most importantly was the gameplay. The gameplay is just very good shooter gameplay. Now, this is probably one of the only games released for the Super Grafx. I think there was only a few games, maybe probably less than 10, if I had to guess. I have them all on emulation on my setup, but I don't remember exactly, but it's a really small list of games. There's a great port of Ghouls and Ghosts on there. But and I believe a 1943 game. There's some really good games, but there's only a few games on the system. But if you do want to play the system, if you have the system, obviously you're going to want to have this game. This is going to be one of the best on the system. And if not, more realistically, you can easily play this on emulation like RetroArch or something like that, and it plays great on there. So you can easily just do that like I did. But I really like these huge bosses with all the moving parts, the blade, the bosses kind of transform as you fight them. I think a lot of them are multi-form. As you damage them, they turn into different forms. Common shit these days, obviously, but I still think it's really cool. I always enjoy this kind of shit. Now, the game doesn't get real challenging, I don't think, until a little bit later, from what I remember. I remember not really having that much trouble with the game until I got to maybe the final stage or the final areas. I remember some checkpoints particularly being really, really fucking dense, and I really, really had to memorize. I couldn't rely on reaction. I had to just memorize my positionings. And that's the sign of a hard shooter, when it's kind of like a little bit like R-Type in that sense, where it's almost like, it can almost be like a puzzle to memorize your next position. So it does have that kind of gameplay. This level looks fucking great. I love all the parallax scrolling and the lightning in the background. It looks like really far in the distant background. It has a nice 3D kind of effect. Considering it's all 2D sprites, I think it's well done. It's too bad the Super Grafx didn't have much of a life, but this is a really cool looking stage. And it just looks good. The art style looks great. The colors really pop. And the game has a lot of cool scenes like this. I just think it's a nice looking game. Now, my footage is a little juddery because I've been having a problem for a while when I try to combine multiple videos after editing them, or even before editing them, when I combine multiple videos, because I edit out all the deaths in my tutorial version. Sometimes they come out, the video just comes out all jerky and shit. And I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know why it skips frames sometimes. Still can't figure it out. But it happens in a lot of my tutorials, unfortunately, because it's the only way I know how to combine videos. So, some videos come out better than others with that. But yeah, very cool level. I don't even think that was the main boss, just a tough enemy. I think this level's pretty challenging. Very cool level, though. You got these little robots. Now, the one thing that's going to be real shitty about this review is that I probably beat this game a few years ago, so I do not really remember exactly how that attachment worked with, how the weapons worked and everything. I mean, obviously, I can see here you have a nice little attachment pod that I think it fires the same weapon that you have equipped to your ship, so you get extra fire range with that, and you can kind of move it around and position it so that it can hit enemies in different parts of the screen. I think that's how it works. Of course, like R-Type, I believe you can use it as a shield as well to block certain projectiles. And maybe even grind it on the enemies to kill them. Yeah, I think that's what I was doing a little bit there. So you have multiple uses with that, but I don't remember all the nuances. I did probably break that down in my tutorial version of this game, which I will link in the description. So check that out for more gameplay detail. Though when I do these reviews, even though some of these games I beat years ago, I do definitely remember the general feeling and gist of how I felt about the games. You know what I mean? And that I enjoyed them. I remember which games were very challenging. And there's a lot of details that I still remember. So I think it is good enough because I had good memories of this game, of being one I really enjoyed. And I was surprised with it for a game I never heard of before. But some stuff may come back to me as I watch the video. But yeah, this was just a game that I really enjoyed. It was a nice, challenging shooter, which I always love these kind of games where you have to progress checkpoint to checkpoint. And some of them are brutal, obviously, especially some of the arcade games I've beaten on the channel. Some of those games can be, disgustingly difficult, like Gunsmoke for the arcade. But most games, are not as ridiculous as that. But I always enjoy checkpoint to checkpoint type of games when they're good games, as long as it's not a shitty game. But these kind of games never get old for me. I always enjoy just playing them when I feel like it on my own time, and resuming from whatever checkpoint I left off at. With save state, I'll just resume from wherever I left off if the game has unlimited continues, and then I'll just work on the checkpoint for a while, and maybe I'll play for a few hours, maybe I'll play for 30 minutes, and just try to beat the checkpoint I'm on. Switch over to another game, but I just always enjoy. Whenever I play these games, I just always enjoy trying to progress and figure out the checkpoints. So, I mean, these kind of games never get old for me. But I am impatient and restless, so I do, I play through a shitload of games every year and every month. So I do, I guess, it works against me too because I jump around so much from game to game, but I do complete a lot of them. But there's also hundreds of games in my backlog with save files that I never completed because I'm so restless. But, I do have them in folders, so I remember them, so then I can get back to them maybe one day. But some of them, of course, I'll probably never get back to. It's just the nature of the mass murdering, volume killing. So, yeah, this is the final stage. Really cool looking stage. I mean, seeing stuff like this on Genesis would have been impressive, obviously. This would have looked really good on the Genesis. I mean, I don't think the Super Grafx was that much more powerful than the Genesis, honestly, from what I've seen, but it had some nice effects and things that I don't think the Genesis could have really pulled off. So it is comparable, but I think it's definitely more powerful. But it wasn't, like I said, wasn't going to blow your fucking balls off compared to the Genesis, but it just looks nice. It's a nice, clean-looking game, colorful. I like all the details in the mech enemies, like these bosses, and I like all the parallax scrolling with the different layers. My favorite was probably the stage that I mentioned where it looked like the background was really far off in the distance. I thought that was really cool looking. Now, of course, my reviews are not about the visuals or the sound and all that stuff. I mean, I focus on the gameplay. And like I said, I really enjoyed this. Now, you see this gets pretty aggressive. There's a lot going on. As you get, towards the final stage, as you get deeper into it, there's some really difficult checkpoints. I don't think this is it yet, but you can see this is getting pretty hard. Because, of course, these games are one-hit deaths. But like I said, you do have unlimited continues. You can keep working at it. Another one I got to get back to is Gradius 5 on PS2. That got pretty fucking brutal. And that was checkpoint to checkpoint. But the Gradius games are known for punishing the hell out of you when you start back on a checkpoint. You start naked with no power-ups and your ship goes slow as hell. One thing I don't like about the Gradius games is that, you're so fucking slow when you start off a checkpoint. It's really designed for you to just beat without, dying on any of the checkpoints. Like a no-death run is obviously the way to play those games. But, of course, I'll grind through it checkpoint to checkpoint the hard way. But This game is not like that. You don't have to worry about getting speed up power-ups too much, I don't think. There may be speed power-ups, but they're not like essential like something in Gradius, where if you don't have them, you're pretty much fucked. This is not like that. But see, it's getting pretty wild here. You got these big enemies, and I'm going toe-to-toe with it like at point-blank range, which I don't really have a choice because it's, there's not much room to move around there. So it is very hard near the end. I think that's why it took me nearly 9 hours. Some of the final parts of the game were pretty damn hard. And it probably doesn't look as bad as it is, obviously, because when you see it well executed, it makes it look easier. But I died a lot. So this may be the final boss. Now you see I learned how to pull some pixel-perfect bullshit here, which I learned these kind of things when I practice with save states on emulators because I'm able to keep trying the boss again and again with no penalties. So I can just keep going back to it. And I can find all these weird positions. And this is the kind of stuff I break down in my tutorials. So if you watch my tutorials, it'll help you beat a lot of games because I will definitely have tips and stuff to make shit way fucking easier than trying to fight normally. Because I think this guy would be really hard to fight normally. But of course, once I find an exploit, I don't bother trying to fight it normally. I stick to the exploits that I can find. And I think that was something that I discovered on my own because there's not a lot of videos that show that type of shit. But it's kind of a natural way that I like to play a lot of games. It's just something I look for with save state practice. I'm always looking for that shit on bosses. So, check that out if you want more detailed breakdown of the game. But as far as my review goes, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great shooter for the system. And, it's probably the best shooter on the system, though. The 1943, I believe, is on SuperGrafx as well. That might even be better than this. I got to play that more. But overall, a great game. If you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.